Hey kiddos, it's Saba time, and I just want to say hi to Coley, to Finley, and to Jules, and to Hayden, and to Jackson. And this is the old Saba in Israel, and I happen to be at a place that's called Gedi. And it's in the desert, but you can see behind me that there's waterfalls and things such as that. And this is a very special place. I'm going to tell you a story, and that story is from the Bible, so we know that's right, we know that it's true. And this is a story about David. Now, just for a second, let's think about David. What do we know about David? Well, we know as just a little boy. I mean, he wasn't that old when Samuel, a prophet of God, went to his dad. And Jackson, do you know what David's dad's name was? You guessed it. His daddy's name was Jesse. And Samuel went to Jesse and he said, you know what? One of your sons is going to be the next king of Israel. And you know what? Jesse got all excited. He brought all of his sons out, except for one, because he didn't think that that one would be the next king. And so his youngest son's name was, you guessed it, David. And David was out with the sheep because David was a shepherd. And David was a great shepherd. And he protected his sheep all the time. In fact, if there was ever a lion or a bear, David would make sure that all of his sheep were safe. And sometimes sheep have a way of just sort of wandering off, and David would never lose any of his sheep because he was a very good shepherd. I only know one shepherd that was a better shepherd than David. Do you know who that might be? Jesus. Jesus is the great shepherd, and Jesus doesn't lose any of his sheep. Well, anyhow, David is anointed king, but at this time there's another king that's still on the throne, and his name was King Saul. And Saul was afraid of David, and he had decided, you know what? I need to get rid of David because everybody likes David. In fact, sometime on this trip, I'm going to tell you the story of David and Goliath, and you know where I'm going to be when I tell you that story, right? It's in a valley. It's called the Valley of Hayden. Do you know? It's called the Valley of Elah. And Coley and Finley, ask your mommy and daddy, how many stones did David have to gather in the Valley of Elah to take care of Goliath? Maybe you can get a hold of your cousins. Jackson's favorite story is from the Valley of Elah, and he'll tell you how many smooth stones that David had to get. But anyhow, that's a different story. I'm now here in a place called En-Gedi, and this is where David hid from Saul. And I'm going to turn the camera for a second. I'm going to show you some like caves and things like that. Can you see all those cool places? You know how you like to play hide and seek? Can you imagine David's out here in the desert and he's got just a small little army with him, and Saul's got this big army, and David's hiding up in those caves? And we're at a very special place because Jules and Hayden, if you'll ask your mommy and daddy to show you in the Bible where the book of Psalms are. This is the place where David wrote all those psalms, like Psalm 23. Jackson, make sure that your daddy reads you Psalm 23 tonight. In fact, all of you guys, Coley and Jules and Hayden and Finley, make sure your mommy and daddy read you Psalm 23 tonight. But the one thing that we do know is that God protected David because David had a heart after God. And you know what? God's going to protect all of you guys, because we're raising you up to know and to love Jesus. And your Nana and your Saba pray for you guys all the time, that your hearts would be given to God, that you would be warriors for Him as you grow up. And I always want you to remember this place, because Saul had so many more people than David, but David was protected by God. And it was here that David would come down, maybe right where Saba's sitting, and he'd get out his pen and paper, and he would begin to talk to God, and he'd write songs to God. You know, songs that you guys know. Salty, remember, do you know who that is? It's like you ask your mommy and daddy, if you don't have them already, to get like videos and songs from Salty. That comes from Psalms. This is where David wrote those Psalms. And so I just wanted you guys to see it with your own eyes, and you can tell your friends, I know where David wrote the Psalms. My Saba's sitting in the water, right behind a waterfall. And so, again, I promise you guys that as often as Saba and Nana can, we're going to send you little snapshots, little videos like this from Israel. And one day, Saba is praying and hoping that at some point we can all come to Israel together. Will you guys pray with me about that? And now let me pray for you guys. Lord, I want to thank you so much for Colton and for Finley and for Nick and for Aubrey and for Lucas. I pray that you bless that family abundantly. I pray that they would love you with all their hearts. And I pray that you protect them. And Lord, I want to pray for baby Jules. And I want to pray for Hey, for Hayden, and for Alicia, and for Trevor. Lord, I thank you so much for my family. And I pray for Trevor and Alicia that you would give them the protection to really believe that you'll provide for every one of their needs, and that they would raise up these little kids in the fear of the Lord to love Jesus. And I thank you so much for this family. And Lord, I thank you so much for Jesse and for Jackson. And I pray, Lord, that your blessing would be upon them, that you would protect them, and that you would provide for them as they put their trust in you. And Lord, we thank you for only a boy named David, and only a little sling, and only a boy named David through God could do great things. Love you guys, and I'll see you in a little bit. Bye-bye. This is Saba from Israel. Bye.